Number 7. Daniel Appleton. On December the 22nd of 2019, a British mechanic fatally bludgeoned his wife and a Good Samaritan pensioner while under the influence of synthetic drugs. Daniel Appleton, a man in his late 30s, was a partner at a successful specialist garage near his Sussex home. On the date of the incident, he'd chased his half-naked wife, identified as 32-year-old schoolteacher Amy, out of the house and attacked her in the street. A neighbor would later report that Appleton was uncharacteristically enraged and agitated, and likened his transformation to that of the Incredible Hulk. As he was beating Amy, a 76-year-old pensioner named Sandy Seagrave tried to intervene. Appleton grabbed the woman's metal walking stick with which he forcefully struck her and then Amy. Both women died from their injuries, and in the immediate aftermath, Appleton determinedly but unsuccessfully tried to take his own life. He grabbed a kitchen knife and stabbed himself in the chest 5 times. In an attempt to cut through major arteries, he also slashed his upper thighs, forearms, neck, head, and calves. The emergency services were able to save Appleton, and 3 psychiatric assessments later determined he'd suffered a psychotic episode. It was later attributed to 2,5-NBOME, a highly potent synthetic version of LSD, the traces of which had been found in his nails and hair samples. Appleton denied taking drugs and claimed that his breakdown had stemmed from anxiety over starting a family with Amy. In the end, he was sentenced to life in prison with at least 26.5 years served. Number 6. Eben Collins. In the early hours of January the 20th of 2019, a mechanic mowed down a woman in Linden, New Jersey, and subsequently spent several months quietly trying to cover his tracks. 35-year-old elementary school teacher Megan Crilly and a few of her friends were crossing an intersection in the area of St. George's Avenue after a night out at a local bar. 39-year-old Eben Collins had been celebrating his birthday and was allegedly intoxicated while behind the wheel of his 2015 Jeep Grand Cherokee. He ran a red light and then plowed into Crilly. The force of the impact reportedly launched the school teacher an estimated 140 feet, which is nearly the width of a football field. Collins didn't stop or slow down and continued driving through the intersection. Crilly was taken to University Hospital in Newark after having sustained shattered bones, spinal cord injuries, and a lacerated liver, resulting in massive internal bleeding. She died in the hospital 11 days later. Following the collision, Collins drove back to the auto shop where he worked in Westfield and hid the Grand Cherokee. According to the authorities, he'd explained the damage to his shop's owner as him having hit a deer and spent the next 2 months ordering parts to fix the car. The Grand Cherokee's battered bumper, a key piece of evidence, was traced to a salvage yard in Pennsauken, roughly 70 miles from the scene of the accident. Collins was subsequently arrested and charged with aggravated manslaughter and death by auto while intoxicated, both first-degree crimes, as well as hindering apprehension and tampering with evidence. Number 5. Cody Haynes. A mechanic whose line of work included maintaining the White House's helicopter fleet was arrested at his home in Port St. Lucie, Florida, in October of 2018. Cody Haynes, who reportedly had top-secret security clearance because of his position, had placed a frantic 911 call claiming that armed intruders were holding his family hostage. Several officers were dispatched to his home. Upon their arrival, 30-year-old Haynes told them that 3 masked African-American subjects had held his family captive for hours. He claimed to have escaped with his daughter but believed the intruders had remained inside with his girlfriend, Tara Frew. The police found no evidence of a break-in, but noticed that Haynes had dilated pupils, was sweating profusely, and his breathing was labored. Inside a box in the master bedroom, officers discovered a white substance, later confirmed as methamphetamine, as well as drug paraphernalia. When they asked him to pull up Frew's number on his cell phone, they noticed a website about drug hallucinations on Haynes' browser. He ultimately admitted that he'd been smoking meth, and Frew confirmed that he'd been using the drug, allegedly to deal with anxiety upon being contacted by the officers. The helicopter mechanic was arrested and charged with child neglect and drug possession. Number 4. Benjamin Hunt and Jonathan Hassell. 2 mechanics from Longton, England, killed a man while carrying out a citizen's arrest on May the 15th of 2019. Benjamin Hunt, then in his early 30s, and his colleague Jonathan Hassell were at work when a man with a sledgehammer walked up to an Audi belonging to the latter's son. It's unclear what had driven the man, identified as 25-year-old Christopher Walters, to then smash the vehicle's windows. The two mechanics chased him down and managed to immobilize him. Hassell was reportedly pinning down his lower body while Hunt held Walters around the neck. He was resisting them, and the mechanics were allegedly afraid to release him for fear of what he might do to them or others. At some point, however, Walters stopped trying to fight back, and even though Hunt believed him to be unconscious, he kept using his body weight to apply pressure to his neck. The police were called and arrived roughly 19 minutes after the man had been detained to find Hunt still on top of him. Walters died, and a post-mortem revealed significant bruising to his neck as well as oxygen deprivation in his brain. Compression of the neck was pronounced as the cause of death, resulting in both Hunt and Hassell being charged with manslaughter. The latter took his own life only days before his trial was due to commence. Hunt pleaded guilty and was given 38 months in jail, a sentence which the victim's mother described as a joke. Number 3. Francisco Rogero Leandro Ramos. A Brazilian mechanic was carjacked and held at gunpoint in October of 2021 after taking a customer's luxury car for a joyride. Francisco Rogero Leandro Ramos had been working on a Porsche valued at close to $90,000 at a shop in Rio de Janeiro. It belonged to an unnamed businessman from the city of Nova Iguaçu who wanted the vehicle's stereo fixed. On October the 24th, Ramos decided to take his girlfriend for a ride in the Porsche, and the couple were traveling through the neighborhood of California. CCTV would show that after turning right off a main road, Ramos was forced to slow down as another vehicle was blocking his path. The second car then drove off, but before the mechanic could do the same, two men approached the Porsche with their guns drawn. Surveillance cameras captured the moment Ramos and his girlfriend were forced out of the high-end car. Believing the mechanic to be the vehicle's wealthy owner, the robbers ordered him to get in the back seat and then drove to a cash point. He tried telling them that the Porsche didn't belong to him, an aspect that the robbers only believed after his bank account was revealed to be empty. They then drove to the city of Nilópolis, where they abandoned Ramos and the car without taking anything. The police launched an investigation, but the legal implications Ramos was to face for the ill-fated joyride remained unspecified. Today's topic was requested by River Parish, Aaron Vallejos, Deborah Lester, and Melina24. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Colin Gale. In the early afternoon of April the 19th of 2014, Mark Manning met with Colin Gale at the latter's garage, P&B Motors in Weston Road, Worthing, England. 54-year-old Manning was a bomb disposal expert who'd worked for Princess Diana's anti-landmine charity. 3 days after the meetup with Gale, Manning was reported missing by his son. As the last person to have seen him, Gale was interviewed by the police. He maintained that he dropped Manning off at the Worthing station, but his story was later found to lack credibility, as the man hadn't appeared in any surveillance footage. Gale's then wife subsequently told the investigators that he'd confessed to her to have killed Manning and then enlisted the help of friend Stuart Robertson to dispose of the body. The motive had reportedly been a sum of over $23,000 owed to Manning by Gale from the sale of two vehicles. Following his arrest on suspicion of murder in May of 2015, and during his ensuing trial, Gale's defense would try to claim that the 6'8" man had had a serious fear of violence from Manning because of the debt. Moments before he was killed, the latter had reportedly showed up at the garage and swung an axe at Gale. The mechanic grabbed an industrial wrench, which was over 3 feet long, and bludgeoned him to death with it. He then allegedly told his wife, "I finished him off." The self-defense angle ultimately didn't hold up in court, and Gale was convicted of manslaughter by loss of control and sentenced to over 15 years in prison. Robertson was also arrested and revealed the location of the body, which he dumped in dense undergrowth in Hampshire Hill in March of 2016. He was sentenced to 4 years for preventing a lawful burial. Number 1. Peter Madsen. In 2017, Swedish-born journalist Kim Wall was living in Copenhagen, Denmark, with her boyfriend, Ole Stobe. Earlier in the year, she'd asked for an interview with engineer Peter Madsen, who'd earned a reputation as a brilliant mechanic and inventor. In August, he invited her on his privately built UC-3 Nautilus submarine. She boarded it on the 10th from Korea Bay at around 7 p.m. for what was expected to be a 2-hour interview. At 8:30, a passing ship captured a photo of Madsen and Wall, the submarine's sole occupants, in the watercraft's control tower. Wall didn't return to the drop-off point and was never seen alive again. Stobe had failed to reach her and called the police early on the 11th to report her missing. A few hours later, the Nautilus foundered in Cog Bay, south of Copenhagen, and Madsen was rescued from the water. There was no sign of Wall. The mechanic maintained that he disembarked the journalist at Refshaloen and then experienced a technical problem that led to his submarine sinking. The authorities, however, found that the Nautilus had been scuttled, and a series of gruesome revelations followed. On August the 21st, a dismembered torso was found on a beach southwest of Amager with 15 stab wounds, some in the groin region. The remains were confirmed as Wall's via DNA testing. On October the 6th, divers discovered 2 plastic bags in Clear Bay containing Wall's head, legs, clothes, and a knife, while her arms were found in late November. Madsen had changed his story on August the 12th and stated that the woman died after he'd accidentally slammed the submarine's hatch into her head. However, her subsequently discovered skull showed no evidence of blunt force trauma. Madsen gave yet another account of the events, still denying he'd murdered Wall, but admitting to the dismemberment and inviting speculation that she'd succumbed to carbon monoxide inhalation. The prosecution would argue that he'd abused, tortured, and then strangled Wall or slit her throat prior to cutting up her body and then scuttling the Nautilus to cover his tracks. Madsen, whose psychiatric evaluation established him as a narcissistic psychopath, was found guilty of murder and ultimately sentenced to life in prison in 2018. 2 years later, in October, he made a short-lived escape by holding a female psychologist hostage with a pistol-like contraption and then hijacking a van. He was also wearing a belt seemingly rigged with explosives, but that was later determined to have been a decoy. He was apprehended less than 550 yards from the prison. Thanks for watching. Would you rather have a mechanic diagnose your health or have a doctor work on your car? Let us know in the comments section below.